So we're outside today, mainly because my mom said I really need to start getting outside. And she also said I need to start wearing brighter colors. So, 1 for 2. So if you're new to Community Church, my name is Lou. I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm really happy that you decided to spend some time with us here today, whenever you're watching this, and from wherever you're watching or listening to this. If you would do us a favor and go over to communitychurch.net/connect, there's a little form on there, and it'll take you anywhere from like 45 to 60 seconds to fill out, depending on how quick you are on the keyboard. But if you do that, that'll let us know that you connected with us, and it'll also allow us to keep you up to date with everything that's happening here at the church, with all the changes and everything going on here. And if you do that for us, we'll send you a gift card this week in the mail just to say thanks for taking the time and going out of your way to do that. Well, as most of you know, every week we have kids programs, and if you go over to communitychurch.net/kids, you'll see all our kids programs on there. There's also a link to our new parents Facebook group that we started just to help keep parents connected during this time. And if you have any friends with kids that maybe are going a little bit crazy during this whole quarantine period of life, that are looking for a little bit of encouraging entertainment for their kids, this would be a great thing to pass on to them as well. So communitychurch.net/kids. So a couple weeks ago, we started something called Win at Home, which is basically just a general title for this effort that we're making to help you thrive where you are, even when you're not on the church property. And so we've sent out some books to parents. We've sent out some little kind of encouraging things in the mail. But one other thing we're doing that's kind of part of this Win at Home thing is daily push notifications. We're going to be doing it at least for the rest of the month of May. And so if you download the Community Church app and you go to your settings, there's actually a video, a how-to video in last week's service. If you look at that at the very, very end, it's the last thing in the service. But you can enable push notifications on that app in the settings menu. You go to today's big idea. Every morning at about 7 a.m., you'll get just a little thing to think about that you can keep with you throughout the day, and hopefully it'll be helpful and encouraging to you. Well, needless to say, the past several months have been really challenging for a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And as time goes on, we're continuing to see how this pandemic is affecting other areas of our lives that we would once consider normal. For example, last Sunday was Mother's Day. And I'm sure that no matter how you decided to spend the day, it probably was unlike any other Mother's Day that you've had. And if you think about it, really this whole season of life is a time of sacrifice. It's a time when all of us, no matter where you are, no matter what kind of life you live or lead, all of us are sacrificing for the good of the rest of us. We have students that are sacrificing their graduation ceremonies, their proms, their goodbyes. We have people who are making financial sacrifices. We have moms who are sacrificing, a lot of them sacrificing time with their kids on Mother's Day. We have parents who are sacrificing the time that they have when their kids are in school. We have kids who are sacrificing the time with their friends, all for the good of everybody. And this weekend is a weekend when traditionally we remember the sacrifices that so many have made for the good of all of us here in this country. And this weekend, you're probably not going to celebrate Memorial Day like you normally would. Probably aren't going to go to any big barbecues. Probably aren't going to have any huge celebrations. But my challenge for you this week is, instead of those big celebrations, I would challenge you to use the sacrifices that you are making to remember and to appreciate the ultimate sacrifice that so many have made so we could live in the comfort and in the freedom that so many of us live in today.
On this day we remember. We remember your calling. We remember your courage. We remember your sacrifice. We remember your life. We remember what it cost you to pledge your allegiance to your country. Because of you, we can walk in liberty. Because of you, we can sleep in peace. Because of you, the flag is still there. Because of you, this is the land of the free. Because of you, this is the home of the brave. To the families and friends of the heroes we've lost, we salute you.
Well, you're about to participate in this morning's online service. You're going to hear a song that was put together by a bunch of our guys from a distance. I don't know how they do it. I don't understand music, but somehow they do it and they make it sound good. And then you're going to hear part 5 of our series called Roots. We're talking about growing. And no matter where you are, no matter when you're watching this, I hope that this is a reminder to you that you have a place to belong, that you're part of this community, that you're cared for. And I hope you enjoy this morning's online service.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. The sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. The sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am.
Well, right now we're in a series called Roots, and if this is your first week with us, it'll feel a little bit like you're turning on the game at halftime. So you might want to go back and at least listen to part 1 of the series so you kind of get the idea. But basically what we're talking about is growing spiritually. Now, a lot of things might come to your head when you think about growing spiritually. But what we're talking about is having complete confidence and faith in God. How do we become more and more confident that God is really who he says he is, and that he'll do what he says he'll do? If you remember all the way back to week 1, which might be kind of hard because right now all the days are rolling into one another, right? But if you remember all the way back to week 1, I asked you just to pretend, like no matter what you believe, pretend that God really is real and that you really do have a relationship with him. You really do trust him. And so when he says things like, don't worry, like I haven't forgotten you, like I'll never leave you, like just imagine if that were real, how that would change our lives. And what we said was we believe God wants to take you there. So how do we get there? You know, a lot of people feel like God's playing hide and seek. Like we got to crack a code, say the right thing, and then boom, then God will show up and then we'll have a real relationship with him. But really it's the exact opposite. Like God has been trying to reveal himself to mankind like forever. That's what the whole story, Old Testament, New Testament is about. It's God saying, look, here I am. I love you. You can trust me. Let's have a relationship. And so we believe that there's a way to get there. What we introduce you to is something we call the 5 faith catalysts. 5 faith catalysts. A catalyst is something that stimulates change. So the 5 things we're talking about that grow your faith or your confidence in God. And real quickly, the first three, we said the first one we said is practical teaching. What you'll hear people say in their story, their journey of faith. They'll say, well, for the first time I heard someone explain the teachings of Jesus in a way I could understand and apply. And when I did, I saw there was something to that. So we define practical teaching as information that information that leads to application. Then on the second week, Tom talked about providential relationships. We said that faith, the whole thing, is not a me thing, it's a we thing. And when we make it just about us, because sometimes faith is uncomfortable to talk about, we're actually selling ourselves short. There are people that have experiences, that have grown, and there's so much we can learn from one another, and so much we can offer one another. So we're selling ourselves short when we make it a super private thing. And last week we talked about private disciplines. We said these small things that lead to big faith. It's things that fuel our relationship with God. When we do little things, and what you'll hear people say is like, well, for the first time in my life, I took a small step. I decided I was going to pray for just a couple minutes a day. And at first, I didn't know what to say. It was a little weird, but eventually it became a thing. And then I began to count on it. Then I began to look forward to it, like praying. Or they'll say, I got a little daily reader, and I started reading it every day. It gave me something to think about, or whatever. And we said just small steps that lead to huge faith. Private disciplines. Now, there's 2 more, and we didn't come up with all these. They were coined by a pastor in Atlanta, Georgia. His name's Andy Stanley, and we're totally stealing them from him. But I think he'd be happy about it. So these are the things that we believe God used to grow your faith. And today we're talking about the 4th one. And before I tell you what it is, I kind of have to hype it up. You know, if you know my style, kind of got to like make you want to know, right? And really, I believe that this is the most exciting of all the faith catalysts. I believe that it could potentially be the most explosive, meaning it will cause your faith to grow the most rapidly and the quickest. And I also think it's the most rewarding. It's the most rewarding of the faith catalyst. However, there is a major barrier that prevents so many of us, including myself, from really, really embracing this. And we need to address the barrier if we're going to get the most out of this specific faith catalyst. So what is it? Well, I don't have some like fancy reveal or cool reveal to tell you what the faith catalyst is. It's personal ministry. We consider personal ministry. Now, I know what you're thinking. Like, you use the word exciting and explosive, and then you're talking about ministry. I know what your experiences was like, but for me, like ministry on the playground, you know, like no, ministry is not really a sexy thing. No kids talking about how they want to be a minister one day when they grow up. It's not the thing anyone talks about on career day, right? When I was growing up, I was not impressed with the idea of ministry. I didn't really know any pastors. I knew of a few. And I remember one time I went to a pastor's house for dinner, and he drank pizza with, he drank milk with his pizza. And when he did that, I was like, ministers must be such weird people. And for me, that was like the thing. And if you drink milk with pizza, I think you need to evaluate your life choices, because we need to move on to better things. I'm just kidding. It's fine. If you want to drink milk with pizza, it's totally fine. As long as you're not older than 5. Just kidding. Okay. Anyway, so maybe ministry for you is not really a flashy idea. So we kind of got to reframe it. And here's what I want you to remember, to know about ministry. Most people think of ministry, they think of pastors. Me, I'm a pastor. So for like tax purposes and on official forms, somebody says, are you a minister? Well, technically, yes, I am. However, as far as Jesus is concerned and the writers of the New Testament, my life has no more potential for personal ministry than your life does. No matter what role you're in, no matter what you do, where you work, if you work, how old you are, what season of life you're in, my job has no more potential for ministry than your job does. The word ministry in the New Testament is really just the same exact word for service. To minister is to serve. For some reason, we've kind of made it its own concept, and we've even coined people that work in church as ministers, but it really just means to serve. In other words, it's much more of a how and a why than it is a what. I know somebody, and I'm not going to tell you his name because I didn't talk to him about telling this story, but his name's David. And he is one of the most caring, compassionate guys I know. And he's a mail carrier. And he goes from house to house. And he's told me before, he thinks about these people that he sees on a regular basis. He said sometimes he prays for them while he's walking from house to house. He cares about them. He wants to serve them. And you could say that's a ministry. That's a ministry. He is concerned about meeting the needs of people. That's what serving is. And at the same time, I bet you've also at least heard of people who are professional ministers who are really not in it to serve people. Maybe you find out afterwards when they have some kind of epic, failure. Or maybe you kind of pick up on it while it's happening. They're not really in this for other people. They're in this for themselves. And I'll be honest with you, there's always a temptation to try and be successful on a career level working as a minister. It is a constant thing that we have to be aware of. Are we really in this to care for people, or are we just trying to achieve some level of success? It's a constant temptation. So my point is, ministry has nothing to do with what your role is, what your job is, what your responsibility is. We might say ministry, personal ministry, is a role or responsibility to serve people, to care for people. But there's one more level to it. Jesus himself said that he came not to be served, which is something crazy to think about. God, right? He's I didn't come to be served. I came to serve people. If you've never heard that might rock your world a little bit. And then one day, and this is the thing you kind of got to take with you, right? You can't just let it go or hear it quickly. You kind of got to sit with this. He was sitting with his followers one day, and he said, as the Father sent me, I'm sending you. I had a mission from him. Now I'm passing that on to you. So in other words, what he's saying is I want you to serve on behalf of me. Some of the New Testament writers would say whatever you do it in the name of Jesus. That doesn't mean say in Jesus' name after everything that you do. It means do it on behalf of him, as if he's doing it. And so when we talk about personal ministry, here's a little definition for the day. We're talking about a role or responsibility to serve people, to care for people on behalf of Jesus, as if he were doing it himself. We're continuing his mission, which is a tremendous, huge privilege. Now, okay, so if you think about that could rock your world. That could be enough, right? But there's something that we're faced with over and over and over and over and over again, a huge barrier that we have to deal with when it comes to personal ministry. There's a passage in Matthew's gospel that I'm going to read. We talked about Matthew last week. This is in the book of Matthew. We call it the book of Matthew because it was written by Matthew, and we're super creative with stuff like that in the church. And basically he's telling this story. He followed Jesus around everywhere. He was one of the disciples, one of Jesus' closest followers, these 12 guys that followed him everywhere. And he took good notes. And one day, Jesus is out teaching, and at this point, he's wildly famous. People are coming out by the hundreds, literally by the thousands. Think a major sporting event. That many people are coming out to hear Jesus, which is incredible because they didn't have sound amplification or anything like that. And so there's all these people listening to him, and it's getting late, and people don't want to leave because I guess what he was saying was pretty good. And the disciples come up to him, and they recognize a need. They recognize something that the people need, like a way to serve the people, right? Here's what happens. Matthew says, as evening approached, as it got later, the disciples came to him and said, they came to Jesus and they said, this is a remote place. We're in the middle of nowhere, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Saying, look, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're three miles away from the closest outback, and if we don't let people go now, they're not going to get there before it closes. So let's let them go so they can eat. And then Jesus gives them an opportunity, ready? An opportunity for personal ministry. He gives them a responsibility to serve the people on behalf of him, to care for these people on behalf of him. He says, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. Now, this is ludicrous. There's thousands of people there. They would have needed like several very large bakeries, fully staffed, running at full steam to serve all these people bread, because that was their thing, right? And so we don't know exactly how they felt. I mean, they had seen Jesus do some pretty crazy things. They already saw him speak to a storm, tell it to be quiet, and it listened. They saw him heal some people, so they knew there was something special about this guy. But at the same time, there's thousands of people there, and what he's asking is somewhat ridiculous. And so they respond with the same way so many of us would have responded. They say, we have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. They're like, look, there's 13 of us, 12 plus Jesus. We're already going halfsies on the bread, and then we've got the fish for the 2 guys that are gluten-free. I don't know if they were, but probably not. But they're like, we have nothing. We have so little to offer, and you're asking us to do such a big thing. And I think Jesus is trying to teach them something here. And this is what happens over and over and over again. Like, typically, when we talk about a role or responsibility to serve people with personal ministry, a lot of times, not always, a lot of times we're talking about taking a position in the church, right? But not always, but often. And what happens is I'll see someone who's really good at something, and I'll approach them and be like, hey, I think you could use this in a pretty cool way here. And right away, the response is, it's almost the same every time. It's, I only this, right? Or I don't have much to offer. Or I can't do enough. Or it's this feeling of, and here's the barrier, right? It's this realization of our inadequacy. The feelings of, I have so little to offer. The feeling of, I'm only. The feeling of, what I have can't possibly make a difference. And that's exactly what the disciples hear. Look, this is all we have. How do you expect us to do something with that? And what Jesus says is what we have to remember when it comes to doing anything on behalf of him. Remember this, okay? He says, bring them to me. Take the little you have and bring it to me. Now, think about it. He's like this miracle worker. He does crazy things, all right? He could have said, oh, that's all you have? All right, I'm going to go have a little miraculous barbecue over here, and I'm going to pop out 5,000 burger patties, right? But he doesn't say that. Like, he doesn't disregard the little they have. He also doesn't say, go make the best of those 5 loaves and 2 fish. Just go try to do something with it. He says, no, take what little you have and bring it to me. And that's the idea here. Like, think about this. If you know how the story ends, Jesus, he takes the bread and the fish, and we don't know exactly how, but he multiplies it, and he gives it back to those 12 disciples to go hand out and feed to the crowd. In fact, if you're in the crowd that day, this story to you is not the day that Jesus fed 5,000. This is the day that the disciples fed the 5,000. And it was because they took their little bit and they brought it to him. Remember, we're talking about how to grow your faith, right? We're talking about how to increase our confidence in God. How do you think that increased their confidence in God that day when they took their little and they brought it to Jesus and they saw what he was able to do? When we take what little we have and we bring it to Jesus, we see how much he's able to do. Now, when I'm putting these together, just to like kind of let you behind the curtain, I try to think of some like kind of memorable way to come up with like the main point, right? Something that rhymes. Like Tom the other week, he was like, not me, but we, right? Okay, you can remember that. Information lead to application. Well, so I was thinking about this and I was like, okay, how about we say God uses what we can't do to show us what he can do. And I was like, all right, that seems pretty easy to remember. But now watch, that's going to be the thing you remember. Don't. But that might lead us the wrong way, right? The disciples didn't just sit there and be like, well, we've got nothing, so is it like, you're on your own, Jesus, right? They took their little bit and they brought it to him. And so I think what would be much better for us to say is that God uses the little we can do to show us how much he can do. The little we can do to show us how much he could do. There's someone here at the church who we have a guest services department here, right? We try to serve the people that come, the guests, right? And in that department there are hosts. And there's this one person who sits there. She was asked to be a host, to sit there and welcome people in, right? To make them feel at home, to be friendly, to smile. And the response was kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Like, it wasn't like mind-blowing, like, okay, I guess I'll do that little job, right? And just to say yes and smile. And what's amazing to me is that like several weeks later, I met somebody who had kind of a rough past with the church, had really been kind of hurt by her last church, and so spent years and years away from the church, and came here to this church and jumped right in. Got totally on board, joined the team, now like comes to everything, and is getting to know God more. Like her faith has grown, her relationship with God is now something that is like something she really, really values and is growing. And I said, what was it? Like, what was the difference? And she mentioned that host. She said, I came the first day, and she smiled. She welcomed me in. It was like she was happy to see me. She wanted me to be there. Then I came back the next week, and she remembered my name. And that's when I knew I had a place to belong. Now think about that. Think about that. All this host did was take like her loaves, her bread, and be like, here's what I have. You want me to stand by the door and say hi? Okay, I can do that. I can do it, and I can do it enthusiastically. And now there is someone who is committed to the church, who is like learning more and more about God, and whose life is being changed, is being enriched because of somebody who just said yes, who just brought God the little that she had. Because God uses the little that we can do to show us how much he can do. We shoot ourselves in the foot when we look at what we have and say, oh, it's not enough, forget it. I'm not going to do anything. All I have to offer is this, forget it. And God, if we would just bring what we had, God, we would see so much more. And then what would happen is our faith, our confidence in God would grow. Now, normally what I would do if life were normal, which it's not, but if it were, right now what I would talk about is how valuable it would be for each one of us to take a role here at the church on the team, whether it's in the parking lot or out there. And I would talk about how rewarding it is, how much you can get out of it, and how each one of us has individual strengths, gifts, personalities that God can use like way beyond what we would expect him to do if we would join the team here or serve somewhere else, right? That's what I would normally say. But things aren't normal right now. And the reality is most of us are spending more time at home than we ever have in the house. Quarantine or no quarantine, your most important ministry, as far as God is concerned, is the ministry that you have, the role or a responsibility that you have to serve and care for the people in your home. Whether that means you're a mother, father, wife, husband, brother, sister, daughter, son. As far as God's concerned, that rises to the top of the list more than anything else. And typically, we have the same problem. We look at our role or who we are as brothers or sisters or moms or dads and be like, well, I don't have much to offer. I'm not like that kind of a dad, or I'm not like that kind of a mom or that kind of a wife or that kind of I only have really this. And so what we do is we dramatically underestimate what God wants to do through what we have to offer in our homes. And so it kind of falls to the bottom of the list. We don't really have like great expectations for what can happen inside our homes. And right now, people we're in a new stage of this quarantine. People are tired of it. The things that were like kind of cute and fun in the beginning are no longer cute and fun. Now people are more irritable than they've been throughout this whole thing. People are out of patience, and homes are not easy places to be. We're just tired of it. We're tired of it. Right now, domestic violence is on the rise, like big time, because people have run out of patience. But what if we started to understand what was happening in the home, our roles and responsibilities in the home as opportunities to care for and serve those people on behalf of Jesus? Somebody recently told me that if you're a husband to your wife because God wants to show your wife his love through you. If you're a wife to your husband because God wants to show his love to your husband through you. Like, you show him that love. I don't know. For me, it's almost an overwhelming thought to think about. It's an incredible privilege. It also feels like this incredible responsibility. But we look at our roles and we look at them like they're just so small. Like, well, that really doesn't matter what I do. And not just our roles, but we look at our situations, our statements, our comebacks, our jabs, our digs, like they don't really matter. And maybe for you, like in your next situation, right? Maybe your husband says something to you that's just rude or just hurts. And you know, well, here I'm going to come back with this, and that's going to just make him feel so small, right? Or I'm going to bring up this thing that he did, and then I'll be able to come back at him, right? Or and maybe the best way you can bring Jesus like your bread and your fish and be like, here, do something with this, right? Maybe the best way you could do that is just by saying, I'm gonna take a deep breath. I'm gonna swallow that. I'm not gonna say that. And maybe you'll see that he is able to do so much by such a small step that you take or don't take in this situation. But we have to bring it to him. We have to invite him into our inadequacy, into our irritability, our insufficiency. What if we did that? I know right now, like I said, domestic violence is on the rise, and I'm not, so naive to think that there aren't people that are listening to this who have been part of that. And maybe for you, maybe you're feeling like you recently failed in a way that you never thought you would. Maybe you crossed a line that you thought you never would cross. Maybe right now your marriage is worse than it's ever been. Maybe it's hanging on by a thread. I heard a pastor say about a couple of years ago, he said, and changed my life, changed the way I view my relationships, changed the way I live at home. He said, there's more potential for you to grow through your failure than through your success. Through getting it wrong, owning it, taking responsibility for it, and not pretending that it just didn't happen. There's more potential to grow from that than from just getting it right the first time. For me, that has changed the way that I live at home. Like when I blow it, happens all the time. I'm like real good at that, right? In the moments, and I don't always do this, but when I do, when I like sit down with my wife and say, look, I shouldn't have said that. I was mad about this, and I shouldn't have gone there. I had crossed the line. Or even with my kids. If I like lash out at them and I sit down with them and say, listen, they're 5 and 3. If I say, listen, my words were not kind to you. I shouldn't have gone there with you. You would be amazed to see how much God could do with such a small step, just like offering him the little that we have. So whether you failed or not, whether things are really bad or not, what I want to invite you to do this week is prioritize your most important ministry. If you're in a home with a family, it's the people around you. If you're not, if you're alone, well, think about the people that you interact with most often, the people that you Zoom with most often or see most often. Maybe you decide to pray, maybe just for a couple minutes for each one of them by name every morning, maybe every night. And in those moments where you feel like, well, I could do this or I could do that, or if I did this, it won't matter. It's only a little bit. Maybe if instead you offered that to Jesus and said, okay, I really don't think this is going to matter, but I'm going to do it anyway. You might see that he is able to do so much through so little. There's my challenge for you this week. I miss you guys. I can't wait until the day that we can see each other again in person. But until we can do that, hope that you have a great week.
Thank you so much for joining us for our online service. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be with us. Before you go, I want to talk to you real quick about a webpage that we have on our website called communitychurch.net/connect. On this webpage, you will see 2 forms. The first form is our Connect form. If you fill that out and give us some of your contact information, we'll keep you updated and let you know what's going on with the church. Also with that form, if you happen to be a parent and you'd like to have some of the resources that we've been sending out weekly, fill out that form in the bottom. Just say, hey, I'm a parent. I'd like some of those resources, and we'll be sure to send them to you. The other form is something we don't talk about too much, but it's a feedback form. This online church thing is pretty new for us. It's only been 2 months that we've been doing it. If you'd like to leave us some feedback, please click that form. Let us know how it's going, because we'd love some feedback. We always want to improve. Well, that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.